Another first-time bloomer in my orchid collection today, this time Dendrobium Nestor. You know, I always share the good, the bad, and the mediocre on my channel. How do you think this orchid did for the blooming season? All of this and more coming up at The Orchid Hut. Welcome back to The Orchid Hut. My name is Dana and thank you for joining me in this featured orchid video for my first time bloomer, Dendrobium Nestor. Now, this orchid is also known as Little Sweet Scent. It is a primary hybrid, a cross between the species Orchids, Anosmum, and Parisiae. Well, this particular orchid joined my collection about 6 months ago when I went to an orchid show in Louisiana. I just fell in love with the plant. It was so large and so gorgeous. I purchased that plant at the orchid show. It nearly filled up the back of the car on the way back home and was growing for the remainder of the growing season, hanging in a tree right next to the orchid hut in the backyard. So it was added to my collection in September of 2023, so I've had it for about 6 months. As the months progressed, I did begin to decrease watering in October. It did stay out for some of the cool fall nights, and then when the temperatures at night began to get what I thought might be a little too cold, I did bring it in for the remainder of the winter. Now, you know, the blooming results for this particular orchid are not stellar. You know, I'm kind of getting to see what the blooms look like, but I think a bit of change to the care and culture, and of course not, you know, moving it during the growing season will hopefully give me some better results next year. So I'm going to take a little break right here, reposition the camera, and I'll be right back to show you the entire plant. Okay, so now that I've repositioned the camera here, you can tell that all of the canes went bare. The leaves were dropped with the exception of maybe an isolated green leaf here or there. And there's still every once in a while a yellow leaf that is dropping, but for the most part, the plant did go leafless for the winter season. Unfortunately, the blooms that I showed you were the only two that actually matured and bloomed open for me. You can tell that at one point I was probably a bit more hopeful. There were more buds on this same cane, but they blasted prior to maturing and opening. Now, this particular bud is the pink version, and it has a deeper purple throat. It's an absolutely gorgeous bloom. You can imagine what this would look like if all of the canes were filled with blooms like that. It does have a bit of a grape scent starting to develop. These blooms are about 2 or 3 days open at this point. At first, the grape scent was much more pungent. Now it's turning into a sweeter grape scent. I imagine that if all of these canes were full of blooms, that the smell would probably fill the room. You know, there aren't going to be any more buds developing on any of these other canes. I was hopeful for a while, but then it just seemed like places where there might have been a little bit of a swelling, you know, it just sort of stalled. And now, since it is the beginning of spring, this orchid needs to get back outside and begin its new cane growth for the new growing season. I'll insert a little picture here. There is evidence of new canes beginning to develop at the base of the plant, and what I'm going to be doing with this one, just to tidy it up a bit, is add some cocoa fiber to the top of the basket rim here, and then probably top it off with some Dendrobium media, because as it was growing last year, you can see that the media is sort of reseeded down into the basket, and some of the root system and where the new growth would be starting would be a little too far away from the top of the bark. So I will be doing that when I hang it back outside. Now, for next year, so that I can hopefully get better results, you know, I think growing under the tree was perfect. I do think that this orchid is going to need a whole lot of fertilizer in order to grow nice, long, strong canes. I also think that in the fall and winter season, I could probably leave this plant out a bit longer. I started getting a little bit worried when the temperatures were in the upper 40 degrees Fahrenheit, but I do think this one could stay out, you know, even, you know, to the lower 40 degrees, as long as there was no danger of frost. I think this orchid could take it, and it would probably promote better blooming during the late winter, early spring. So I am going to be giving that a try next year, leaving it out a bit longer so that it is exposed to the cooler nighttime temperatures. I do think this orchid, though, benefited from being under the bright grow lights indoors once I brought it in. Because of where this orchid grows in the wild, it probably gets a bit brighter light during the winter season. So I think I will keep that strategy. I did keep this orchid completely dry for probably the months of December and January. Once I knew that I was starting to get some buds, I did introduce a little bit of water, but not too much. And of course now this one needs to be watered really, really well, and fertilizer needs to begin so that the new cane growth can be really strong. So this is the first time bloomer, Dendrobium Nestor, aka Little Sweet Scent. The results, probably in the category of mediocre. Considering that I have only had it in my collection for about 6 months, I'll hope for a better bloom show coming up in the next season. Okay, if I have any other videos that featured this orchid earlier on, I will put a link in the upper right hand corner of the screen. And thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, please give it a thumbs up. The subscribe button is coming up in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and don't forget the notifications bell to let you know when I've posted something new. Thank you all so much for watching, and talk to you next time.